Most human beings are good-natured from the get-go, so it's natural for many of us to hope that we are a good person, but not many of us question whether or not we are actually sticking to our principles. For those of you who do, and maybe even those who are just curious, you may have taken a personality quiz or two online, whether it was telling you what Harry Potter house you belong in, what your compatibility with a potential partner is, or even what kind of pet you should own. Some of you may even be invested in horoscopes, which is a kind of personality test based on where the stars are positioned when a person is born. And what if I told you that there is a personality test that was developed by psychologists like Robert McCrae and Paul Costa, going back as far as the 1980s, that will tell you exactly what kind of personality you have? Allow me to introduce to you the 5-concept model. Now, according to McCrae and Costa, a person exhibits some part of all of the following in no particular order: neuroticism, openness, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and finally, extroversion. Now, of course, like any screening, there is a spectrum of possibilities rather than just one black and white answer. You may only exhibit a few portions of one concept and many of another. So let's discuss what each of these concepts mean and how they apply to a person's personality. Neuroticism, confidence versus anxiety. Neuroticism is defined by psychologists as emotional instability and anxiety about current and future events. Now, that's not to be confused with an anxiety-related disorder. However, someone who scores high in this concept nonetheless will very likely struggle with some kind of anxiety-related disorder. A person with a high score in this concept may struggle with keeping a job, as you might find yourself struggling to adapt to ever-changing environments. Keeping interpersonal relationships may also be a struggle for you, as scoring high in this area points to a kind of insecurity. This is the concept that you'd want to score low in, as it would mean that you are confident, calm, and rational. Openness, creativity versus dependence. Openness is all about a person's ability to think critically about the situation they're in. As the name suggests, someone who scores high in this area is open-minded and willing to explore all options available at the time. People with high scores in this concept will excel in interpersonal relationships and work. Unlike with neuroticism, if you score high in openness, you are able to quickly come up with creative solutions that not many other people are going to be thinking of. People will look to you for solutions to their problems, and you tend to be reliable. Of course, scoring low in openness doesn't mean that you're unreliable, it just means that you're less dependent and need more direction than those that score high. You're more of an executor than a thinker, a notable quality in and of itself. Agreeableness, altruism versus manipulation. An agreeable person is someone who exhibits qualities such as empathy, understanding, and kindness. Someone who scores high in this concept doesn't typically measure the pros and cons of doing something kind or helpful. It comes easy to them. Scoring high on this spectrum, or at least moderate, is something we all wish for. Scoring low on this concept suggests a person who is manipulative and shady. They'll exploit anything they can to meet their own needs and their own desires. Hold out hope, though. Personalities often change throughout our lives, and someone who scores low on this concept now may not always. People can always learn and change, most commonly through education from the people around them. Other elements enter the equation as suggested by the diathesis stress model, which states that there are genetic, biological, and environmental factors that play a role in a person's behavior. So a person who robs another person may score low in agreeableness, but they may be robbing you out of desperation, not greed. It is imperative to remember that this concept alone does not define a good or bad person. Conscientiousness, organization versus procrastination. If you scored high in conscientiousness, you're probably highly organized. You make sure to update your calendar regularly, you label things you think you might forget, and everything has a place. For this reason, you are also the planner. When someone invites you to go someplace, whether it's a friend, a family member, or a partner, you're already thinking about plans A, B, and C. When you're scheduling for an important appointment, you're thinking about how long the appointment will take before you book it. You tend to be diligent and hardworking. Once you start a task, you're determined to finish it in a timely manner. However, all that can be shaken by just one thing: procrastination. If you score low in conscientiousness, starting and/or finishing a task may come difficult to you. However, this concept, like neuroticism, can be motivated by psychopathology. For example, someone with a neurodivergent disorder such as ADHD may describe something called executive dysfunction, which is when a person sets out to do a task, and before they can start, nearly all of their motivation to do that task simply disappears in an instant. You may also see this in OCD, when motivation to clean a space may be difficult, as your OCD standard may be an impossible one, and the task becomes too monumental to take on alone. Extroversion, social versus reserved. You've almost definitely heard it before, that this person is an introvert and that person is an extrovert. But what do these words mean? Someone who scores high in extroversion is typically outgoing and expressive. They don't like sitting at home for too long, and they enjoy the company of others as much as, if not more, than their own. An introvert is the opposite. If you score low in extroversion, you probably like to keep to yourself and don't speak your mind unless it's necessary. Social settings aren't something you actively seek out as much as you find yourself in, as fate would have it. Extroverted people also tend to be affectionate and fun-loving. Introverts find their fun at home, in activities such as reading or drawing or writing. Although it is important to remember that it's uncommon for people to be completely extroverted or completely introverted. An introvert hanging out with their pets is still a kind of extroverted behavior. Some medical facilities even acknowledge the existence of ambiversion, which is when you exist somewhere between extroversion and introversion. An ambivert can score high or low in extroversion. If you scored high in this concept, you are far from a wallflower. All human beings are different, from their hair color to their eye color to their personalities and hobbies. And personalities are the most unique of all human features. There are approximately 86 billion neurons inside every human brain, and each neuron does something different. And each person has unique circumstances, genetic makeup, and biological predispositions that make them and their personalities unique. And as we navigate through this thing we call life, we adapt, as does our environment. Just as your taste in food changes, so does your personality with time. To complicate things further, there is such a thing as what we call a personality disorder. A good way to describe such a disorder as it relates to this concept is to say that in the brain of someone with a personality disorder, one or more of the aforementioned concepts may be missing, skewed, or even brought to an extreme level in a person's psychology. Furthermore, psychopathology and the presence of mental illness such as depression or anxiety plays a massive role in a person's personality as well. And as people, we have a responsibility to stay ever aware of that fact and educate ourselves on the stigma surrounding mental illness and how they tie into the development of unique personalities. We all hope to be good people, and we all want to do what's right. But if every person is different, then it's safe to assume that even the definition of what's right may vary from person to person. Your values may not line up with somebody else's. Now, that doesn't mean that their goals are all that different from yours. Whether you tend to be altruistic and kind, or disorganized with a tendency to procrastinate, whether you're social and expressive or anxious and detached, human beings are, by nature, social and friendly animals. So social that we have the unique ability to make friends with just about any other species on the planet. So despite our differences, it can't be that hard for us to get along with each other.